Welcome one and all to the Ferret and Raccoon podcast, episode 196. I am your one and only host for this podcast, the Angry Raccoon, bringing you the second technical podcast of July 2022. And yes, the last 2 weeks have been pretty interesting and quite eventful around the world, particularly in England for the most part. And if I do sound a bit strange to some extent, that's because I have a bit of a sore throat because of what I'm about to get into, and because it's quite early on in the morning. My weekend or my free time has pretty much been cut short, and I have to get this podcast, or at least recorded now, otherwise there'll be no time. Like, obviously this podcast is not going to be longer than 45 minutes, as I'm sure you can see by the actual time of it. But yeah, I've got about a few minutes before I need to head off and get things done, unfortunately. But at least this will be the last time that I will be, I guess, rushed for time for a little while, because a holiday for me is coming up pretty soon. So I'm looking forward to that. Around the world, it's been pretty interesting. I'm not going to dwell too much on it because I know you guys aren't necessarily here for world news, but one of the bigger talking points that has been, I guess, discussed regarding the world is this sort of global heat wave that I think a lot of countries are experiencing at the moment. England is experiencing it right now. We are seeing some pretty high temperatures over the last almost 2 weeks now. It's been quite rough. England doesn't typically get a consistent summer. It's something that people love to, moan and complain about, which I really don't understand that, because England is really close to Antarctica and this isn't a warm country. So it always baffles me that people always go on about it. But yeah, we have been seeing 25 to 27 and in some cases 30-degree heat. And it's been quite ugly at points, that awful weather when not even the breeze is cool, the breeze is warm and hot, and it's just, like I said, ugly. And it has made getting things done quite tricky for the most part. It's been really tricky to, come back from work after being out in that sunlight and, get started on doing this podcast. That's why this episode is as short as it is for the most part. The other thing I want to quickly mention is the fact that I can't remember the exact day, but our current Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, was finally removed or kicked out of his position. And media has been trying to ram, the whole speculation and the whole hype train regarding who's going to become the next Prime Minister down our throats, which has been quite awful. They finally have something to talk about, despite the fact there are way more important and interesting things happening in the world. So that's going to be an awful talking point for the next few days, particularly regarding the people who are running for Prime Minister. They're all terrible. And I'm really worried about the future of this country and the world, because they are not interested in anything besides themselves and making money. So that's going to be wonderful to deal with, especially when so many people are struggling now more than ever. Literally just this morning, I went and did my shopping for food, and I barely got anything because I like to keep myself on a budget, and things are going up in price. Rough average by 10p, 15p. Some of you may say that's not a big deal, but here's the thing: when almost everything you like to buy and possibly should be eating is going up, it can be a little distressing. Maybe not necessarily for me, but for other people who are, like I said, struggling maybe financially. So yeah, not really the best time to be getting rid of the current Prime Minister and putting in some hack fraud who's only interested in themselves. But that's my 2 cents on politics right now. I'll end it there. But we have a short episode. There wasn't really too much I wanted to talk about, and I did scale this podcast down just to get it done. I didn't want to give you guys fluff. So the first thing we're going to talk about is going to be for Genndy Tartakovsky's, I believe that's how you say his name. I'll give you the spelling anyway. Tarkakovsky. It's going to be season 2 of his animated series Primal, which it's been a little while since season 1 debuted, and everyone who watched season 1 already knows this, but for those who haven't, the first season is outstanding. Without a doubt, one of the best things of the last decade. Simply put, no arguments. You cannot argue against that. Anyone who's watched it knows that, like I said before. And for those of you who haven't watched it, essentially is a series that takes place in prehistoric times, following 2 characters, Spear, or the caveman, who is essentially our caveman character, and his I guess, not really pets, but his T-Rex friend to some extent, as they essentially battle and survive in the, well, pretty harsh setting for the most part. It's a very visceral and a very fantastic series, and it's almost mostly, I was going to say quiet, but there's no real dialogue except for screaming, I guess. But somehow the series has like 4 voice actors, despite no one actually really saying any words. But yeah, this is, well, it's just wonderful, the fact that it's coming out, and it's coming out really soon. I mean, this podcast is going up on the 18th, and I think the series debuts, I think it's the 21st or the 25th. So yeah, it's literally right around the corner. So I just wanted to mention it in case people actually wanted to see it. And season 2 seems to be just as wild and brutal as the first. Like, it feels like Spear and Fang are going to be going up against armies. I mean, it's mad that, how do I put it? It's crazy to think that this is where the series is going in some sense. It's not necessarily surprising, but yeah. I mean, it's exciting to see, and hopefully it will be exciting to watch, which I don't doubt it will. It is Genndy after all. This series is appropriately and ironically evolving in some ways. Like, they're not just fighting for survival against beasts this time around, although I'd imagine that's what they are doing. They're fighting against the future in some regard, like their place in this like changing and alien world, because, like I said, for those of you who haven't seen season 1, it's basically more prehistoric environments and villains, I guess you could say. Now it is humans. They are the main threat. And even in the trailer, you see Spear get shot by like 3 arrows at a time. Like, can he walk that off compared to other things? Like, is there something that these humans, these more advanced, more intelligent enemies have against him? Like, how is he gonna, survive that? Yeah, sure, he has just raw strength, and same with Spear, but, there's, who knows what these, evolved humans or whatever can do, because there was some, serious things in season 1. I don't really want to spoil it, because I want everyone to watch this show, because it deserves all the attention and all the praise it's gotten. And what could be clever is if Primal, the title of the series, now refers to the main characters, rather than just the world or the time period. Because, yeah, these characters are outdated to some extent. They are out of their depth in some regards. And, yeah, they are the only reason why this series is called Primal to some extent. Like, these characters look not too far off from... I was trying to give you, like, a rough date. Yeah, they're not too far off, like, Vikings and other more barbaric groups of people within our actual past, so it should be quite interesting. And some of the visuals in this trailer are like amazing, like that silhouetted like demon sitting in a throne, like that is some heavy metal like doom shit right there. Like, that is awesome. That's like poster worthy right there. But I cannot wait to see where this series is going to go. I know it's going to be a short-ish watch. I mean, each episode is about 20 minutes long. There's about 10 episodes so far. So if you really wanted to, you can get it done in a half hour. I would recommend watching the first 5 episodes, give it a day, and then watch the next 5 to some extent. But yeah, I am really looking forward to this series. Definitely one of my more anticipated shows. And once again, I don't have to wait long. And also, if you're in England, it's going to be on Channel 4 or all 4. So you'll be able to watch it via there. Sticking with animation, but shifting gears slightly, we have a bit of a surprise from the Anime Expo which happened, which I guess it's nice that people are, or organizations or whoever, are able to do conventions again. I know a few weeks ago there was a furry convention. I can't remember its exact name, but that was nice that they were able to do that once again. And yeah, we got Trigun Stampede, which... I'll be the first to say, Trigun doesn't need an anime. The 1998 series is an underrated classic in my opinion, but at least there is some level of like passion or care behind this remake. Like, they're trying something different, which I'm going to get onto really quickly. And yeah, I understand why this has got people a bit annoyed. Like, the one thing that has people upset is Vash's redesign, and I'm going to use the rabbit ears or the quotation marks because it's still his iconic look. I really don't understand where the bitching is coming from. Like, is it the color scheme? Is it the hair? Like, it's still Vash. He's not now a 45-year-old African-American black man, who is wielding swords now. I can understand if that was the case, then yeah, you would have every right to be annoyed. But it still looks like Vash. It is Vash the Stampede. Like, it's stuff like that is just really bizarre. Like, anime fans are so fickle-minded at points. This is why I don't necessarily regard myself as a fan of anime. I regard myself as a fan of the art form or animation in general. If he looked exactly the same, but his jacket was a slightly darker red, they'd still be calling this series shit because of it. That's what they're like. They're very particular about things that really don't matter at the end of the day. And his design, it's modern, it's bold, it's a little flamboyant, and I actually like it to some extent. It would have been nice to see the actual iconic hair, but maybe that might happen in the series, who knows. But people are too hung up on the past, and besides, part of the point of his character is that he would dress weird. He is an oddball. A lot of the characters do dress strange, and I would imagine all the other characters that are going to appear in this series are going to look a bit odd. But like I said before, it's still Vash. I can tell it's him. Like, people just need to kind of get over it. Or, just don't watch the series and shut up at the end of the day. If you don't like it, move on with your life. I don't really need your video or your opinion if it's just going to be that. But the animation, let's talk about positives. The animation looks like it was done by Arc System Works, the people who have been doing the Guilty Gear, more recent Guilty Gear games, which is not a bad thing. It looks smooth, it looks swift. Obviously, I know a lot of people are quite hung up on the CGI look of it. I think it looks fine, honestly. It looks, like I said, pretty well done. It's got a somewhat light shading to it to some extent, which I'm more than happy with. It does look like it's going to stand out against some of the other animes that do have a 3D-ish or CGI look. It's fine, doesn't bother me. The thing that does bother me is this fact, and that is, what I seem to think is going to be happening with this series. It's interesting that this adaptation is going to focus more on like characters and relationships, which is great to expand on, because that's something that you could argue was missing from the original. But hopefully this series is as funny as the original series. The comedic elements in that first 1998 series really helped to ground the series. It made the characters very likable. And I think characters like Merrily and Millie, I believe that's what she was called, they need to be spot on, because they were part of the comedic charm along with Vash himself. If Vash is too much of a, main protagonist in this without any real character development, or it's too emotional, it could actually sink the series. I mean, this trailer was, I think, a little bit too melodramatic, a little bit too serious. We didn't really see any of those. We didn't really get a sense of Vash's character. He just seemed like badass protagonist, which, yeah, he is that. But he was also a weird goofball, a lovable goofball. And hopefully that's there. Hopefully his, like I said, flamboyant look does play into his, weird character to some extent. And, I have my fingers crossed for that. But that's the only thing that I think could sour the series. And that's the only real criticism I think you could throw at the show at the moment, I should say. I'm getting my words mixed up. It's quite early on in the morning. Next trailer we have is another animated one, and that is going to be for Luck. This is going to be an Apple TV exclusive original film, despite the fact Apple doesn't actually own the rights to it, but they like to slap that name there because it looks good. It sucks that it's going to be on Apple TV because no one has Apple TV. I honestly forgot it existed until recently. And yeah, no one's going to watch this, unfortunately, because just no one has Apple TV. I just hope that this gets a Blu-ray release so that people can actually go watch it later on. But this is Skydance's debut animated film, as they've only ever really worked on animation and CGI for other projects, which, is fine, but it does mean that this is exciting to see them take this big step, as this film went quiet for a while. Like, it's been around. I've known about it. I don't necessarily think it was called Lucky, but I'd seen screenshots, and the general concept of it had been around for quite some time. So I'm rooting for them, honestly. I hope this film does well, and hopefully it finds an audience, and hopefully they will do more films, although I know they are moving in the direction of doing original films according to what their upcoming list looks like. So fingers crossed. It has a great concept. I do like the idea of exploring and looking at how theoretically luck and bad luck works. That's an odd and original concept. But at the same time, the story is really simple and safe. I understand that it is, early days for them. This is the first film they're making. But, it's nothing new, unfortunately. And it does come across, unfortunately, like a Disney knockoff to some extent, which is unfortunate. Like, some of the main human characters look a little lifeless for the most part. Like, there is no, defining style that helps this film stand out. Like, you're not looking at this film, granted it's still early days, like I said, you're not looking at this film going, oh, that's a Skydance film, in the same way that you would go, oh, that's a Sony Pictures film, or that's a Illumination film, or a Disney film, or a DreamWorks film. That's not really there, unfortunately. But I do feel like the real star of this film might be the creative way that they explain and how the world works for the most part. Like, with fluid animation that portrays how good and bad luck flows. There was a good example when, the cat is just, seamlessly walking on the umbrellas as people just open them up. Like, he kind of seems to have I'm trying to think of the word, he's almost untouchable to some extent, or has a godlike existence in that, yeah, nothing can really harm him because he has the power of luck. And, if you want to believe in luck, that's how it does work out. I think that stuff is really cool and it looks really neat. And I think will be the main star of the show to some extent. I like that dragon character. She has a really cool design with the multiple arms. I think that's really cool. And Simon Pegg as a cat is just funny, regardless, just to see him do as an authentic accent as he can. I don't know, how authentic that is. I don't know if that is just how he is or where he's come from, but it's good. I think the performances, from what I've heard, do seem pretty good. And yeah, seems like there's going to be a lot of great elements here. I do hope so. I'm rooting for this film. I'm going to try and watch it somehow, or at the very least, I'm going to buy the art book, which does come out quite soon, because yeah, I'd be very interested to see, the making of this film that may have possibly been in development hell for a little while. I mean, this is their debut film. I want to see the problems they hopefully worked through and managed to figure out. So yeah, I am really looking forward to this one. Last trailer, unfortunately, we have is going to be for Clerks 3, which, I mean, sure, why not? Clerks is the only film I think I've ever seen from Kevin Smith, and I really like it. It has that cinema, with a passion kind of vibe to it, and it's honestly one of those just this was made by a person film, you know what I mean? It didn't feel like we had to set up 20 other films and, you had to watch this film or it didn't feel like a Marvel film, basically, is what I'm trying to say, because everything has to be a franchise and has to fit into a puzzle. It felt unique for the time, and I think it still does. It feels like a breath of fresh air compared to so many other things right now. And I feel like this film is kind of playing with nostalgia in a very interesting way, and I think that's the main reason why I want to talk about it. It's very meta, it's very self-referential in a very tasteful and kind of cheeky way. Them stating that Jay and Silent Bob, who are the most iconic characters, I think, from, Kevin Smith's, filmography, saying that they aren't cool, but they're the face of the series. That's quite funny. Having the film be about the main characters making a film about themselves is, once again, another funny and clever concept in a lot of regards. And just seeing Kevin Smith himself playing, the character that he, popularized to some extent, just kind of giving the thumbs up in regards to some of the commentary regarding him, possibly, making, the Clerks sequel and other merchandising and where he is and what he stands for right now, whether he is a sellout or a hack fraud. There are very few directors that would ever admit that, and I give him props for that in some regards. But yeah, it is cute, which maybe isn't the intention he's going for to some extent, but it's funny. Hopefully I feel like he is smart enough, or the filmmakers are smart enough, to make a film that is not taking itself too seriously. They know it's Clerks 3. They know it's, to some extent, a cash grab. It's just for the sake of it being there, And like I said, more people need to be like that. We need more films that are in reference to what they are, as opposed to trying to be something they're not. And he's clearly just making another Clerks film, which is fine by me. And I mean, it's nice to see the cast return and kind of reference age. Obviously, they are a lot older, but maybe there'll be more commentary in terms of like age and how that's affecting them. You do see one of the main characters kind of get breathless. One of them, almost dies to some extent. And maybe this is a film where Kevin Smith is kind of reflecting on his life and his career and where he is right now. Because he is a very interesting person. He has a very interesting, I guess, story to tell, or, from where he's gone. I mean, even him just making Clerks, I think he sold his whole comic book collection in order to make that film, and obviously it paid off because he made a fantastic film, in my opinion. And, if this film is so meta, this is just one thought that came to mind when writing this. Every song in this film should be a cover of the songs in the first film, to some regard. Or there should be, like, new songs from today with, like, similar sounds or similar vibes or from the same genre. I think that would be really clever because it would push that, trying to be relevant angle really hard in once again, a more meta and interesting way. But I am quite interested to watch this one. I might actually go back and watch some of Kevin Smith's older films, because I know right after he did Clerks, he did Mallrats. And I know there's like a Jay and Silent Bob film, and then obviously Clerks 2, and a couple other films he's done and projects which, I haven't heard too many things about it, really. It's mainly just Clerks, and I think, people just referencing the two iconic characters. So, yeah, I might do that in preparation for this film. But, yeah, that is pretty much going to wrap up this podcast. I know it's a short one, but like I said, I'm a bit strained for time, and I didn't want to just, fill this podcast with just things that I'm not really interested in. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Video of the episode is going to be for FKA Twigs with Ride the Dragon, a slightly older music video that came out earlier this year. I think in terms of there being so much discussion about England, at least within this country, I thought might as well throw you guys a video that does reference England in some regards. I think it's a pretty funny and well done music video. FKA Twigs is a fantastic artist, and if you've never heard of her, I haven't finished the newest album she released, Capri Songs, but I heard it's good. So hopefully you guys enjoy this music video. And yeah, I do find what actually happens in this music video to be, quite annoying and quite ironic, because yeah, in London you can't do anything. And I think that's quite unfortunate in some regards. This country's too paranoid at the end of the day. But yeah, that is going to be it. The one thing I will say, as I'm sure some of you have noticed, given the title of this episode, we are getting close to episode 200. And I am in the works in planning episode 200. What's going to happen, I can't say right now. I want it to be a surprise, but I'm still working it out. It's going to be a simple special. It's nothing crazy for the most part, but hopefully it'll be a longer episode. Hopefully it'll be something that I think people really want to hear and want to hear from certain people. Hint, hint. But yeah, that's pretty much going to be this episode. Thank you for listening. I really appreciate everyone who does enjoy the episode and, come on board and listen and, hopefully get something out of it. And yeah, sorry if this episode comes across as a little bit disappointing. My hands were kind of tied for the most part. It's, I had things that need to be done. It was either this or no podcast, and I don't want to do that right now. And sorry for my voice as well. I do have a bit of a sore throat because of, I haven't talked in a couple of hours, so yeah. But yeah, I guess I will end this podcast like I always do by saying I was the Angry Raccoon, and I will see you on the next podcast.